Hello and welcome. I'm Kathy Lee from Kathy's Creative Place. I have a new card to share with you. I am making the new Impossible card. This is a fairly new design, and if you haven't seen one, they are very cute. It's kind of like a freestanding easel card. This one I made from the Craftology box for May, and it is Authentique's Party collection. I actually made this on during filming and lost my footage. Not sure exactly what happened, but this card has basically a kind of a twist and fold, cut, twist and fold type design. I also made another one from the um, from the party collection from Authentique, and this one's more of a happy birthday card. So for this one, we are just making the base with some basil. I just happen to have this matches the pattern paper fairly well. So we'll start with this. Okay, so what you're going to need to make this card is one piece of cardstock, and this measures 4 1/4 by 6 inches, and this is going to serve as our base. That's this piece here. And then you'll also need 2 other pieces of the cardstock for your anchors, unless you want to use, like I did here with a Spellbinder's label die, or you can use any die as long as it will cover the length of the space on your card base. Okay, so this one we're just going to use regular rectangle cuts. This one measures 3 1/2 by 1 1/4, and you'll need 2 of those. Okay, so now the other pieces that you'll need are 2 pieces of pattern paper, and these measure 2 7/8 by 4 1/8. And this is non-directional pattern paper, which means you can use it upside down. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change the way your card looks. However, in these two, this is directional pattern paper or designer paper. So it's there's always a top and a bottom. And with this one, I had to cut the L out of the top piece of this. But for this one, it wouldn't matter where I position it on this on the card base. So if you're going, but again, if you're going to use directional pattern paper, you'll have to make sure that you cut the top portion out of the L shape, and then the bottom portion on the other side. And I'll run through that with you on this piece anyway. So you'll need that, and then you also need some contrasting pattern paper. In this case, I've used the diagonal yellow and white stripes, and those are going to serve as the pattern paper for my anchors, my rectangular anchors, and then also for my focal point. So in this example, this part will sit on this piece of your cardstock after you cut it and fold it, and then I'm going to use some chipboard pieces like such, and I also did some fussy cutting of some of the flowers from this pattern paper, and then I have a die cut that I'm using for some leaves, and you can actually just cut them out yourself, and I just fold them and crimp them a little bit, give them a little bit of dimension. So we'll be using those on our focal point as well. Okay, so I'm going to pull these out of the way so we can get started. This is actually very simple, a very simple card to make. Oh, here, let's put it over here because I'm going to get my trimmer out. Okay. Also, for this one, I did ink my edges with Dusty Concord. I didn't want a brown because it'll take away from the really pretty colors of this collection. So I used a Dusty Concord, which is a purple, matches these flowers really nicely. But it just gives it a little bit more pop and contrast when you put it on the cardstock. Okay, so for this piece, what we're going to do, there are several tutorials out there. I'm going to show you my method. I have a couple pointers I'll share with you when we cut this. But basically, okay, your trimmer, and if you're not using a Fiskars trimmer, you can actually measure and cut with pencil and your ruler, but for this purpose I'm going to use my trimmer. And the first thing we're going to do with this cardstock is we're going to set this in here at 1 1/4 inch with our trimmer at the top, and then I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to trim it down to 2 1/8. Okay, and then we have this. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so again, I set my cardstock at the 1 1/4 mark, and then I used my blade and cut down to 2 1/8. Okay, now on the other side, so right now it looks like this. On the other side, we're going to take it and put it at 3 inches along the 6-inch side, blade at the top, and again, slide it to 2 1/8. Okay, now our piece looks like this. Okay, let's take that out of the way for a moment, and I'm going to grab my score pal, or score buddy, and I'm going to set my piece in my scoreboard with the 4 1/4 at the top. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to score at the 2 1/8, starting at the first cut line. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So we're actually going to set our bone folder right there on the 2 1/8, which is really where we, up to where we cut to. So 2 1/8, and then we're just going to score down to the next leg to our 2 1/8 area there. Okay, that's the only scoring we're going to do. Okay, now you'll have your piece like this with the score mark in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take with your wide piece at the top, that's this part here. With that at the top, I'm just going to fold my card back like so. Make sure it's straight along the edge and burnish. And then this piece, fold down and just kind of line it up so it follows the score line, but also is a little bit more even. Okay, and there is our card base. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take our pattern pieces and I think I'm going to do them like this. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pattern pieces, and I have a template here that shows where we're going to cut it. So we're going to take our pattern piece, and we're going to cut with our trimmer again at 1 1/8 at the top, down to 2 1/8, and then we're going to turn it around and cut from the top to the 1/8 inch cut line. Okay, so we're going to cut it like this, and you can actually take this piece, cut this part away, and then lay it on your pattern paper, mark it with your pencil, and cut it or trim it if you'd like to do that as well. So, but for my tutorial, I'm just going to use my trimmer and measure. Okay, so we're going to cut this piece off here. So I'm going to put my pattern paper in here at 1 1/8 inch along the 2 7/8 inch line, or measure that length. Okay, and then we're just going to cut with our trimmer down to 2 1/8. Okay, then we're going to turn it around here, and we're going to move it to 2 1/8 in our trimmer, blade at the top, and we're going to trim right to the cut line. If it doesn't make it, just take your scissors there you go. And that piece will go on our card base right here. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with this piece, although rather than cutting this part, we're actually cutting this part. So we're going to set this in our trimmer at 1 1/8 again, blade at the top, and move it right down to 2 1/8. Turn your pattern paper over, set it in the 2 1/8 inch mark, blade at the top, and slide down to the cut line. Okay, and then I'm just trimming it off. There we go. Okay, so now our pieces look like this. Let's move that out of the way. And because I did some inked my edges, I'm just going to do that now with the new cut lines. And I'm just doing it really lightly. I'm just inking those edges. Okay. Now we'll bring our card base back over, and we're going to adhere these right here on our base. Okay, just like that. And then our other yellow pieces will go, oops, oh, that's the piece that I cut out. Okay, so other yellow, our yellow pieces and cardstock, our anchors, will go right here. I cannot get my fingernails under there. Okay. Okay, just like that. And then this will be the piece we put here for our motif, for our focal point. Give that a little brush of ink. Okay. So now we're just going to move these out of the way, and we'll get started first by adhering our pattern paper panels to our card base. These measurements I've left 1/16 border. on the base. Okay, there's the first one. And I find it easy to just fold the flap forward so I can place it, move around where I need it to be, smooth it out. Okay, there we go. Now, the anchor pieces, we'll just glue our pattern paper to the cardstock. Okay, those are our anchors. That'll be the top and the bottom. Okay, so before we do that, let's go ahead and get our pattern paper for our focal point on the card base. There we go. All right. Now, in order to make sure that it sits straight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this here against the marks on my mat, because that helps me make sure that this is going to be straight. Okay, so I'm going to put these just like this, kind of in the middle. I could probably move it up a little bit so it's a little bit more centered. So I'm going to just put some glue on both ends, not too far down, won't need it too far down. And again, pushing this back and holding that also kind of makes sure that your cardstock is not going to move. Okay. Okay, there's that anchor. Okay, we're going to turn the other one and turn it around and do basically the same thing. Here, lining up everything. Yep, everything's nice and sturdy there. Okay. And I'm going to kind of get it as centered as possible to be in line with what this one up here. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, there we go. That's the base of our card, and it's about as simple as that. It's really not very complex. It looks complex, but it's not. Okay, now it's just a matter of decorating. Okay, and our card is complete.